So, hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, my name is Muhammad Aiman Muhammad Razid. I'm from NSR 243-4S2. So, today our group will present about sport mechanic, which is boxing straight punch. So, movement of the skill that been analyzed, which is cross straight punch, which is the rear hand is thrown from the chin crossing the body. It traveling towards the target in the straight line situation. How can this happen is the torso and hips are rotated counterclockwise to perform this kind of movement. Weight is transferred from the rear foot to the lead foot. It means if you present this kind of movement by using your right hand, your rear foot is right, your lead foot might be left. So for biomechanics that will involve for sagittal, which is elbow extension, hip extension, ankle plantar flexion. For frontal, the biomechanics been involved, which is shoulder internal rotation, forearm pronation, hip external rotation, hip internal rotation. For transverse, which is pelvic rotation, also thoracic rotation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will explain to you about muscle that involved in the boxing. So, the muscle that involved is muscle of the shoulder girdle, the core muscle, the muscle of upper leg and hip, the muscle of the neck and trapezius. So, all the upper and lower body muscle is important for the athlete, for the boxing athlete. So, we'll go one by one. So for the first one, the muscle of the shoulder girdle. So the muscle is the deltoid. So before that, muscle of shoulder girdle function is to give the strength and range of motion to the arm. So it is good to the athlete to develop the muscle of shoulder girdle. So we'll go. The next one is latissimus dorsi. For the latissimus dorsi, it is at our back of the body. And the next one is the pectorals. So pectorals, it is at our chest. So the next one is core muscle. The core muscle that involved is rectus abdominis, oblique, and the spinal erector. For the rectus abdominis, we can call it as a six-pack, six-pack muscle at our stomach. And the next is oblique. It is at the side of our abdomen. And the last one is spinal erector. For the spinal erector, it has three, which is iliocostalis, longissimus, and spinalis. So we will go to the muscle of upper legs and hips. For the muscle of upper legs and hips, the muscle that involved is the quadricep at our leg. So it is the great extensor muscle of knee. The next one is the hamstring, our hamstring. Located between our hips and knee. And the last one is gluteal. Gluteal is made up of our buttocks. And the last one is the muscle of neck and trapezius. So this all is important for the athletes to develop to make their performance more better and good during the tournament. So the next we'll go to the purpose of analysis. There are two of purpose. There are two purpose of analysis for the boxing athlete. First, to calculate the hand acceleration of straight punch of advanced skill boxer, and the next to analyze the kinematic angle of hip rotation, shoulder rotation, forearm pronation, and the ankle plantar flexion of advanced skill boxer. So we will go to the next slide. For the next slide, this is the slide show how we set up our video. So first, 4K video recording in 1080p video with 240 frames per second. It is recorded with the iPhone X, and it also been supported by the tripod. And the next one is two-dimensional view. So for the two-dimensional view, the boxer is placed the marker at their joint. So at the athlete joint, we place a marker to make easy to calculate the kinemia. So for the procedure, camera will set up on the tripod accurately at marked position. So the next one is stickers were positioned at each visible joint. So the function of sticker were positioned at each visible joint is to make it easier to get the accurate point at the kinemia. So after the setup is good, the boxer will ask to perform straight punch with feet placed at the marker point. So it has been given for one trial. So the next one is angle will record at initial and end position. So we'll go to the next slide.
Okay, for the athlete profile, our athlete is Reza Afiq, born in Johor Bahru. Is a seasoned boxer with professional record of 13 fights in boxing and Muay Thai. He competed in Sukma, Myanmar Season 4, and was a previous state champion. He weighs at 71 kilograms with a height of 175 centimeters. So next, we will explain about the angle analysis. The athlete will stand at the same point. The angles of forearm pronation, hip rotation, and plantar flexion was taken from the frontal, transverse, and sagittal view. The angles was taken at the end of each movement with another point from the starting position. So first of all, transverse view for hip rotation. As you can see in this figure, for transverse view hip rotation, in figure from the transverse view, Reza recorded large degrees of hip rotation at 53 degree from the starting position. The angles captured from the points at the end of the bars attached to the both athletes' hips. So this is the hip rotation for the athlete Reza. So in discussion, we talk about the hip rotation angles of Reza as whip his hip to gain momentum in order to punch faster and harder. So the strength is he has a good mobility, but the weakness is not enough movement of whip to hip that generate power. So as you can see in boxing, rotating the hips will ground the boxer, giving the more balance and power. So however, if hip rotation was less, his punch will less powerful and also leave him uh, vulnerable to being pushed off balance. So as you can see in this figure and the video, so he has a good mobility, but in international boxer, the whip to hip movement is more more larger, so to generate more power. Okay, next for transverse view, shoulder rotation. So rotation. So as you can see in this figure, the angle of shoulder rotation of Reza is 102 degree. So the rotation was big as Reza seemed to internally rotate more as he crouched his body forward, leading to longer reach to his fist. So the angles of the shoulder rotation, the length of Reza, both end of shoulder joint had decreased at the end of the movement, as you can see in the video. This is because he crouched his body inward in order to get a longer reach. So by having a longer reach, it should be easier to hit the target from a longer distance, keeping the boxer safe from counter punches. So furthermore, the vertical plane of his body had traveled linearly forward, leaving the leg behind. So as you can see, the strength is he not focused on only arm extent. So if but the weakness is he can be pushed the body forward more if to get more power. So like is so if he stay in the same position, it will produce smaller rotation angle. So flexibility is another reason to affect the mobility of the rotation. So in this view, the shoulder rotation, he have a good mobility, but in international level of boxer, their body push more forward, so to generate more power. Okay, next, frontal view for arm pronation. As seen in the figure, you can see the frontal view of forearm pronated when Reza had 149 degrees at the end of the movement from the starting position. So to be discussed is this explain the angles of forearm pronation of Reza straight punch rotated at 140 degrees at the end of the punch. The reason is because boxer need to hit the target or opponent or a back while training with only a knuckles of index and the middle finger. So where those two are the hardest and um, the hardest. So if he anyhow should not hit with the pinky fingers, because this is why boxer need to pronate their fists as much as they can. So he must not hit the target with the four knuckles at the position at the end of the punch will be flat fist. So the risk of injury is high when using the four knuckles, including uh, metatarsal, metacarpals, and wrist fracture and wrist dislocation if the produce large force during the punch. So the um, the boxer must avoid to punch the opponent with using four knuckles by only using index finger and focus more in index finger and middle finger. So in this forearm pronation, you can see the strength is he's not in perpendicular position, but he witnesses is he can pronate more like an international level boxer to get more power and force when punching. So moving next, sagittal view ankle plantar flexion. As you can see in the figure, from the sagittal view, it was shown that the ankle plantar flexion of Reza is 31 degree of the floor. So, need to discuss is the angle of plantar flexion Reza feet were flexed higher off the ground. To explain the situation, Reza pushed his feet high to generate more force. So punching process begin with the impulse from our toe to the rear of foot, which enable the boxer to push off and extend their leg, allowing to generate a larger force. So the power of the punch is have a good connection with the feet and the floor because that is where the kinetic chain of power starts with the toes pushing off the floor. So the kinetic chain in a correctly thrown punch activities all the muscle from down the feet up to the fist. Okay, from this point, we can assume that less force if his feet is flat-footed because he's only focused on generating force from his arm. So as you can see, the strength and the weaknesses in Reza is the strength is he's not flat-footed, but the weaknesses he can push his feet off the ground more like that, like international boxer to generate more power. Moving next to the last one, acceleration relative value. As you can see, the boxer stand at the point which the 1 meter from the back. So then he will ask to perform a cross or straight punch technique as hard as he can do with his dominant hand. The distance and time taken for the glove to hit the back were recorded to see the acceleration. The formula used to find the relative value of acceleration was acceleration equals in change velocity divided by change in time. So they calculates the rate of change in the velocity over time. So as you can see, the calculation is displacement is 147 centimeter, time is 0.17 second, velocity 8.7 meter per second, acceleration 51 meter per second. So as you can see, the calculation of Reza value is 51 meter per second as the distance traveled by his glove is at 147 centimeters in the time of 0.17 seconds. So the thing that is discussed is the acceleration as the result of the relative value of the straight punch or cross punch acceleration. The action formed by Reza's punch is fast because of the distance traveled by his glove was further, which allowed him to produce a larger force. Reza pulled his glove before punching to allow him to produce more hip rotation, which enabled him to generate the more power. So although the distance was further, but the time taken for his glove to make contact was shorter, meaning the velocity is higher. Consider velocity equals to displacement travel divided by time. So however, if he did not pull and start the movement from the initial point, the difference in distance, speed and acceleration will be different because of effectiveness of technique performed. So in this calculation, the main is the technique, the pull hand from behind to the back, that's generate more power. So in conclusion, technique hold big impact on the quantitative values obtained from the test, and correlation between techniques and velocity suggested the athletes punching with better form can generate faster punches. So if an athlete were asked to perform cross and hand punches, Reza had a good recorded value whether in terms of angles, speed, time, and acceleration. However, it is not possible to determine the accurate absolute values of the movement with a internship acceleration and angle movement software. So it can be concluded that in this test, the Reza as a skill athlete has a good range of motion during movement and a better rate of acceleration. So the main point that found in this test was technique hold big impact on the quantitative value. Decoration, as I can see, if have a better form, so can generate faster punches. So the psychological factors could also be the reason for the differences seen in the test, including strength, reach, and weight distribution. So that's all from us.